familiar with him in the Nicene Creed, there was a council of men, right? And Constantine, let's talk a little bit about his history. Constantine was originally a pagan worshiper, and then he converted to Christianity because the Roman Empire at the time, it needed strength. But the Romans were sun god worshipers. And so he knew after he accepted Christianity that he would have to enter a mix paganism with Christianity in order for Rome to take Christianity as the religion.
Wait, so you're telling me Constantine, a pagan, he had to then corrupt Christianity by introducing paganism. Isn't it ironic? That's actually Islam in a nutshell. If you guys don't know, the Muslims will admit to you that the pagan Arabs in Arabia, in Mecca and Medina, they worshipped Allah as the high God, and they worshipped gods and goddesses along with Allah. And the Muslim sources say that at the Kaaba, there was 360 idols, and that the Muslim sources attest that Hubal or Hubble was the chief god of Mecca, the chief god of Muhammad's parents, right, and his grandparents. And that there was an idol of Hubal, and that Muhammad's grandfather, he would go to that idol, that statue of Hubal or Hubal, some pronounce it Hubble, and as he's praying to Allah, he would face that statue, and that they would circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times, run around it 7 times. They run between the 2 hills of Safa and Marwa 7 times. Then they would throw 7 stones at Wadi Mina. And according to the Muslim sources, these pagans were into fertility, astral worship. Now, I'm explaining this. You guys want me to go into a little meat, right? Pray again. The Holy Spirit perfects my recall of facts. Let me explain what I mean. And I have it documented. I have the articles. Yusuf Ali and others. And go watch my series and playlist. See, the cat won't leave me alone. See, watch here. Watch. So you can see I'm not lying. Or watch the cat. Watch. See? It's got to go around. Watch here. See what I tell you? See that little cat? Now, watch here. According to the sources, and if you want, I'll show you the links where you can find them. According to the sources, right, the pagans were into astral worship, as almost every pagan was. Listen and learn. I want to go in depth for your benefit. And they were into also what they call fertility cult. If you trace paganism, you will see the belief among them, and I'll probably sit on a couch, that the gods, goddesses affected the crops and the seasons. Now, ironically, there's some truth in that. What do I mean? If you followed my sessions and you followed my discussions, I've shown you from Scripture, like Revelation 7, verse 1 to 3, and Revelation 9, 18 to 23, that spirit powers, spirit creatures, both righteous and evil, have been endowed with powers and abilities by God to affect ecology, affect seasons, right? They can affect the sun. They can affect the waters. They can affect the earth's crust. They can cause tsunamis. They can cause earthquakes. I gave you the receipts. Go watch the series, especially when I went into the book of Job. So ironically, there is some truth that the spirit creatures manipulate the natural realm, the material realm. They can affect your crops. So the pagans saw this and knew this, that their gods, who are actually demons, had powers and abilities they don't have, which the Bible confirms they do. Job 1, Job 2, Revelation 7, Revelation 9, Revelation 16. I've given you receipts, right? But they also believed that the planets were identified and associated with these gods and goddesses, which is also confirmed in the Bible. Did you know that? The Bible confirms that the pagans looked to the sun and moon and stars as planetary deities, meaning these planets were identified, associated with gods and goddesses. So it's not so much that the planet is a god, insofar that they knew that deity could appear in visible form like a human, but that the planet was identified, associated with that god or goddess. You guys know this? These facts? Let's go into meat, right? You hear me there? Let's go into meat. So according to the Muslim sources, and let me show you the documentation, the Arabs believed the moon god was the male deity. So they had gods and goddesses. So in these cultures, if you are patriarchal, meaning you believe the male is the head, then you will associate the chief god with maleness, as a male, masculinity. So here's what's interesting, that the Arabic word for moon Qamar, is masculine. So the Arabs look to the moon as the chief god, the male god. The word for sun, Shams, is feminine. So the sun was known as the wife, the consort of the moon. So the moon was the chief god because the moon represents the male. So it's identified with the chief god. Now, if the chief god is Allah, that means the moon was associated with Allah. See how that works? So Yusuf Ali will admit here, I'll show it to you. So let's keep the timestamp, 6 minutes, 52 seconds. You see how in depth I got to go when I discuss this? If you go right here, I'll show you where to find it. Yusuf Ali admits that the pagan Arabs would run around the Kaaba 7 times for the 7 planets identified with their gods and goddesses. Okay? The identity of pre-Islamic Allah. Ready? You guys are bored with these details, or you're okay with it, that I take some time and unpack all this stuff? Well, no, they don't say that now, brother. Don't misrepresent them. Because you're taking the story of Abraham. But then he says, neither the sun, nor the moon, nor the morning star, Venus, is his ilah. Okay? You guys mind if I go through this? It's up to you guys. I'm doing it for you to see the irony that a Muslimah would talk about paganism and Christianity. Here it is. Abdullah Yusuf Ali. To revert to the worship of the heavenly bodies, a few individual stars did attract the worshippers. It's not about the paganism of the Arabs, according to Muslim sources. Sirius, the dog star, brightest fixed star in the heavens, with the bluish tinge in its light. It is probably Sirius that is referred to as a fixed star in the parable of Abraham, chapter 676. Now watch. With regard to the fixed stars and their myriads, the astronomers turned their fancy to devising groups or constellations. But the moving stars or planets, each with a motion, therefore, will or influence of its own. So the planets would affect you, the motion. But the moving stars or planets, each with a motion and therefore will have or influence of its own. As they knew and understood them, there were 7 in number. 7 in number. So the pagans thought there were only 7 planets. They counted sun and moon as 2, right? 1 and 2, the moon and the sun. The 2 objects were most closely and indubitably influence the tides, the temperatures, the life in our planet. 3 and 4, the 2 inner planets, Mercury and Venus, which are morning and evening stars and never travel far from the sun. 5, 6, and 7, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So the number 7 itself is a mystic number. It will be noticed the sun and moon on the 5 planets God identified, each with a living deity, god or goddess, with the characteristics and qualities of its own. See it? You see that? Now, why did they view the moon as a chief god? Because the Arabic word for the moon, Qamar, is masculine gender, and they're patriarchal. Sun, Shams is feminine. Now, do you see why the Muslims run around the Kaaba 7 times? Yep, Drake. Do you now have the answer? So it's ironic that Muslims are going to tell us Christianity was corrupted by paganism when their entire religious system, their rights, is from paganism. So how do they explain it away? How do they explain it away? They'll say, no, stupid kafir. Don't you know that Abraham went there to Mecca when Ishmael settled there? And that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba? And Allah told Abraham and Ishmael about these rights to run around 7 times? And then the descendants of Ishmael corrupted those rights and paganized them, so Muhammad is restoring them? Now, who believes that? Does anyone believe that story? You tell them, what proof do you have, pre-Islamic sources, that Ishmael settled in Mecca, Abraham visited Ishmael, built the Kaaba, and stood to these rights? What pre-Islamic archaeological textual proofs do you have, besides later Muslim sources and not even contemporary Muhammad, that Ishmael ever settled there, right? In point of fact, there is no historian scholar that takes that seriously. Do you know why? Because most historian scholars don't even believe that Abraham existed. You with me there? They don't even believe Genesis. They think that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're fictional persons. They're not historical. That simply what you have in the Torah is a romanticized, fanciful, mythical story of etiology. These people don't exist. So isn't that ironic? You're going to talk about paganism and Christianity? You got to be kidding me.